So, hello everyone. Today we are here with a detailed analysis of your previous year geology question paper of Rajasthan ACF. So, see, there are 200 questions in the question paper. So, definitely doing all those 200 questions together will be a lofty task. So, I have divided these sets into 10 to 20 questions each because you can have a detailed analysis of each and every question separately without sweating much. Okay, so I have tried to cover these 10 to 20 questions in a short time limit, covering each and every aspect of every question. Okay, so let's begin with a proper detailed analysis of your Rajasthan ACF previous year geology question paper. So this is your question paper, and see, there are in total 200 questions. The maximum marks are 100 and the time limit is 3 hours. Alright, now look at the first question. Okay, so this is your first question. Pangaea is the name of a former continent that included. So the word we have to focus here is your Pangaea. Okay, so in this question we have to tell that the Pangaea supercontinent included which continent. Options are: first, all the continents; second, only Europe and Asia; third, only South America and Africa; and fourth, only North and South America. So, we should know that what is this Pangaea. So friends, Pangaea or Pangaea was a supercontinent that existed during the late Paleozoic and early Mesozoic eras. It assembled from earlier continental units approximately 335 million years ago, and it began to break apart about 175 million years ago. So friends, when you talk about your Pangaea, Pangaea was your supercontinent. So remember, your Pangaea was a supercontinent that consisted of all the continental units, whether it was your North America, your Eurasia, South America, Antarctica, Australia, Africa, everyone. So your Pangaea consisted of all your continents, and the water which was surrounding your Pangaea was known as your Panthalassa Ocean. Okay, then when this drifted, the part in between was known as your Tethys Sea. So friends, the correct answer for this question will be all the continents. See, because your Pangaea consists of all your continents. Okay, so the correct answer for your first question will be option 1, all the continents. Okay, now let's look at your second question. Valleys formed by glaciers always have which of the following characteristics? Okay, so two words we have to focus here. At first we have to focus at glaciers, then we have to focus at valleys. So these valleys are formed by rivers also and glaciers also. So we have seen the valleys formed by rivers, they undergo your lateral erosion and your vertical erosion. Alright, so they form your V-shaped valleys. But what about glaciers? We have to tell that the valleys formed by glaciers have which of the following characteristics? Option 1, U-shaped cross sections; option 2, straight courses; option 3, uniform slopes; or option 4, bedrock floors. So let's have a look at the explanation. They have a characteristic U shape with steep, straight sides and a flat or rounded bottom. By contrast, valleys carved by rivers tend to be V-shaped in cross-section. So, see, the valleys formed by glaciers are in U shape with steep, straight sides and a flat or rounded bottom. But when you talk about your rivers, they are V-shaped in your cross-section, okay, whereas these are U-shaped. So glaciated valleys are formed when a glacier travels across and down a slope, carving the valley by the action of scoring. So the same process even happens here. The moving glacier, when it travels across on a slope, okay, so it carves a valley due to erosion. So this eroding of valley or the formation of valley due to erosion depends definitely upon the velocity and the slope gradient. So here the glaciated valleys are your U shape. Okay, have a look. This is your U-shaped valley, okay, formed by a glacier. It's somewhat looking like a V, but no, it's a U-shaped valley. All right, so Here, the correct answer for your second question will be your option 1, U-shaped cross sections. Okay. Now, let's look at your third question. The core of the earth is thought to be composed of which of the following? Okay. So, we have to see about the core of the earth and the composition of the core. So, we know that our earth is divided into several layers, that is your crust, your mantle and your core. So your core is inner core, outer core, then your mantle is also lower mantle and your upper mantle. But here we just have to tell about the composition of your core. Okay, so we have seen that these crust, your mantle and core have some distinct compositions like your Cl, silica plus aluminium, then your Sima, silica plus magnesium, then you have your Nephe, iron and nickel. Okay, nickel and iron, Nephe. Fine. So we have to tell that the composition of core is, okay, first basalt and granite, second compressed gases, third uranium and lead, and fourth nickel and iron. Now let's have a look at the explanation. Unlike the mineral rich crust and mantle, the core is made almost entirely of metal, specifically iron and nickel. Okay, so your crust and mantle made up of Cl and Sima, your silica and aluminum and your silica and magnesium. But when you talk about your core, it is made up of iron and nickel. So your iron, the chemical representation of iron element is Fe, and your representation of nickel element is Ni. So when you combine Ni and Fe, you have Nephe. So the shorthand used for the core's iron nickel alloy is simply the elements chemical symbols, that is your Nephe, Ni, Fe. Elements that dissolve in iron called siderophiles are also found in the core. So the correct answer for this question will be your option 4, iron and nickel. Alright, now let's look at your fourth question. Which of the following distances in kilometers is closest to the diameter of the earth? Okay, so first thing what the question is asking is that we have to tell about the diameter of the earth. Okay, so see, the question is asking that the closest to the diameter of the earth, because the diameter in the poles and the diameter in the equator are different. Okay, because the earth is not a spherical shape, it is in the geoid shape. Okay, it's flat near your poles and it is bulged near your equatorial region. Okay, and the second thing we have to see is the question is asking it in kilometers. Okay, now the options are 750 kilometers, 2750 kilometers, 12,750 kilometers and 1,27,500 kilometers. Now let's look at the explanation. Because of this means since your earth is in geoid shape, because of this the diameter of the earth at the equator is about 43 kilometers larger than the pole to pole diameter. Why? Because the earth is bulged near your equatorial region. So as a result, the latest measurements indicate that the earth has an equatorial diameter of 12,756 kilometers and a polar diameter of 12,713 kilometers. So basically it's around 12,700 kilometers, okay, or 12,750 kilometers. Now have a look here. Which option is closest? 1, 2, 3 or 4? Which one? Third one, 12,750 kilometers. That's why the correct answer of your fourth question will be third. 12,750 kilometers is the diameter of the earth. Alright, now let's look at your fifth question. The Mohorovicic discontinuity, commonly called the Moho discontinuity, is the boundary between the. Okay, so as I have told you before, the earth is divided into your crust, your mantle and your core. Okay. Now between this crust, mantle and core, see they have different densities. Okay, so when the waves pass through them, there is a change in the speed of the waves when they pass through the materials of different densities. Okay, we all know that this is simple physics. There is a change on the speed of the waves when it passes through materials of different density. The same happens here. So wherever there is a change in the speed of the wave, okay, there we say that there is a discontinuity. It may be between your crust and mantle, your mantle and core. Okay. Now we have to tell that this Mohorovicic discontinuity is between first Option 1, your mantle and crust. Option 2, your asthenosphere and mantle. Option 3, your mantle and outer core. And option 4, outer core and the inner core. Okay. Now at first let me show you this diagram. Okay. This is your crust. Okay, this orange and yellow portion is your mantle, which is divided into your upper mantle and lower mantle, and then you have this gray colored outer core and then inner core. Okay, then they have several discontinuities. Okay, so the first discontinuity is between your outer and inner core. Okay, so this is your Lehman discontinuity. Then the second discontinuity is between your mantle and outer core. This is your Gutenberg discontinuity. Then you have a discontinuity between your upper and lower mantle, which is your Repetit discontinuity. And then you have your Mohorovic discontinuity between your crust and upper mantle. That is this Mohorovic discontinuity is found between your crust and mantle. Okay. Now let's look at the explanation. The Mohorovic discontinuity, usually referred to as the MOHO, is the boundary between the Earth's crust and the mantle. It is defined by the distinct change in the velocity of seismological waves, that is your P and S waves, okay, as they pass through changing densities of rock. So the MOHO lies almost entirely within the lithosphere. Alright. So the correct answer for this question will be your option 1. The Mohorovic discontinuity is between your mantle and crust. Now let's look at your sixth question. The oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere was probably produced by which of the followings? Option 1, volcanoes. Option 2, photosynthetic organisms. Option 3, radioactive minerals. And option 4, meteors. Okay, so here we have to tell that in the Earth's atmosphere we have oxygen. So from where this oxygen was probably produced? Okay, now there are several theories regarding this. Okay, so let's have a look at this explanation. Earth underwent what scientists call the Great Oxidation Event, okay, or GOE for short. As ocean microbes evolved to produce oxygen via photosynthesis. We all know that these microbes in the oceans, they evolved, okay, and they produced oxygen. So at first they underwent your anaerobic respiration. Okay, so this anaerobic respiration takes place without the oxygen, only with the help of carbon dioxide. So they underwent anaerobic respiration, okay, and after then this aerobic respiration started. So these ocean microbes evolved to produce oxygen via photosynthesis. So this evolution took place, and finally due to this photosynthesis they started producing oxygen. So oxygen first accumulated in the Earth's atmosphere at this time and has been present ever since. It's been thought that this happened sometime between 2.5 and 2.3 billion years ago. So definitely the correct answer for your sixth question will be your option 2, photosynthetic organisms. Alright, now let's have a look to your seventh question. According to the protoplanet hypothesis, the solar system begins as which of the following? So we all know that solar system, the origin of solar system, there are several theories about it. Okay, so in this question, the question is asking about your protoplanet hypothesis. There are several hypotheses, your gaseous tidal hypothesis, your nebular hypothesis, and so on. Okay, or planetesimal hypothesis. This question is asking about your protoplanet hypothesis. So according to protoplanet hypothesis, the solar system begins as which of the following? It was a star, or it was a vacuum, or it was a dust and gas or something. So the options are: first, a star, a vacuum, a huge cloud of dust and gas, a group of comets. Now let's look at the explanation. The protoplanet hypothesis suggests that a great cloud of gas and dust. So you have got your answer at the first line. So according to the protoplanet hypothesis, there was a huge cloud of gas and dust from which your solar system originated. Okay, so there was a huge cloud of gas and dust of at least 10,000 million kilometers in diameter. It rotated slowly in space about 5,000 million years ago. So as time passed, the cloud shrank under the pull of its own gravitation. So as it was rotating, there was gravitation, its own gravitation. So due to its own gravitation, it shrank, okay, inwards, or was made to collapse by the explosion of a passing star. Okay, so most of the cloud's material gathered around its own center. its shrinking made it rotate faster. Okay, so as soon as the your cloud shrunk, it started to rotate faster like a spinning whirlpool. The compression of its material made its interior so hot that a powerful reaction, hydrogen fusion, began, and the core of the cloud blazed into a newborn sun. So, according to your proto-planet hypothesis, the solar system began with a cloud of gas and dust. Okay. So, the correct answer will be your option third, a huge cloud of dust and gas. Let's look at your eighth question. Continents have three major features. The oldest areas of each continent are the. So, as we broadly classify it into two major features. That is your old one, stable platform, and your new features that are your unstable landforms. Fine. So, we have to tell that the oldest areas of each continent are. So which one of these features are the oldest one in each continent? Option 1, your folded mountains. Option 2, your stable platforms. Option 3, your mountain cores. Or option 4, your shields. Okay, let's look at the explanation. Although each is unique, all the continents share two basic features, as I have told before. Old, that is your geological stable regions which are older, and then the younger features, somewhat more active regions. They are unstable geologically. So in the younger regions, the process of mountain building has happened recently and often continues to happen. So according to this explanation, the oldest area of each continent are the stable platforms. Okay, so the correct answer will be your option 2, stable platforms. Now let's look at your question 9th. Which of the following names is given to the supercontinent thought to have existed in the Cambrian period? So we saw that at the beginning we had your Pangaea supercontinent, in which all your continental units were together. Your Pangaea was your Paleozoic or Mesozoic period. Okay, now it is asking about the supercontinent that existed during the Cambrian period. Okay, so your examples are your Pangaea. No, of course not Pangaea, because it was there in your Paleozoic period. Okay, then you have second Afrasia. No. Third, Gondwana land, and fourth, Europea. So we know it is Gondwana land, but just have a look at the explanation. Tectonic evidence suggests that the single supercontinent, Rodinia, there is this Rodinia, it was another name of your Pangaea. So during this mid-Cambrian, early mid-Cambrian, it broke into two continents. The Gondwana near the South Pole was a supercontinent that later formed much of the land area of modern Africa, Australia, South America, Antarctica, and parts of Asia. So definitely your correct answer is your Gondwana land. Okay. So the correct answer for your question 9th is option 3, Gondwana land. Okay, now let's look at your question 10. In the nebular hypothesis, each planet is formed from which of the following? So here we have to focus on your nebular hypothesis. So it's just asking that in your nebular hypothesis, the planets or the origin of system or origin of your solar system happen from which of the following? A comet, a number of moons, a passing star, or a ring of gas. So we have to find out what was this nebular hypothesis. Now let's look at your explanation. The nebular hypothesis is the most widely accepted model in the field of cosmogony to explain the formation and evolution of the solar system. It suggests that the solar system formed from gas and dust orbiting the sun. So definitely in nebular hypothesis, your solar system originated from a ring of gas and dust. Alright, so the correct answer for your third question will be option 4, a ring of gas. So with this, we have completed our first 10 questions in a proper detailed manner. With the question, you have also learned some extra definitions and some extra parts related to that question as well. So the next set of questions we will be doing in the next lecture. Till then, have a proper revision of your basic concepts of geology, and whatever doubts you have, you're free to ask them in the comment section. Thank you so much.